Hello, everyone. Welcome to day one of the Astro Priestess Summit on the astrology of 2025 and beyond. I am just like beyond delighted and beyond elated to have our amazing keynote speaker here, Debra Silverman, who is going to speak on changes in the air sky. What can we expect? So I am like, Debra was actually one of my introductions into astrology when I first, in my 20s, became just enamored with astrology. I connected with Debra's work. I bought her book, The Missing Element, and it was just a total,
Oh, really? What
yeah.
year, what year was that?
So this was like 2017.
Just came out. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was maybe 2017, 2018, something like that. And I actually, like, with all my friends, I got all of their astrology charts and we looked at the elements in their astrology charts. What elements were the strongest? What elements did they not have very much in? And it was amazing. And it was all from looking at your book, Deborah. So you are like so influential to me as an astrologer that I'm literally am I awake right now? Am I awake right now? Like this is so amazing to have you here. So for anyone who's new to Deborah, I just want to take a moment to read your bio and then we can hear from you, Deborah. So Debra Silverman is astrologer, psychotherapist, spiritual guide, and author. Debra Silverman brings hope. With our planet longing for compassion and guidance in these very unusual times, Deborah brings her master's degree in clinical psychology plus her humor, wisdom, and honesty to soothe the collective pain body. Deborah is the author of The Missing Element and a founder of a school educating more than 7,000 people in astrology. Deborah is also the host of the I Don't Believe in Astrology podcast. She has a new book, I Don't Believe in Astrology, being released in April 2025. Deborah is madly in love with astrology. For Silverman, astrology is medicine for the soul. While there's no one size fits all approach, Deborah has developed a unique psychological spiritual model based on the four elements in tandem with astrology. Oh my gosh, Deborah, there's like so many questions I want to ask. I'm so excited about your new book. I want to hear about that. And I'm so excited. That's amazing to have over 7,000 people go through your astrology school. And I know that you're about to start a new session with that. So I'd love to hear from you and anything like you would just feel inspired to share on your book, your school. Like that was really sparking my excitement.
It's funny as you get older, and I am becoming an elder. In a couple of years, I'll be 70. It's so crazy to think. And because of that, it's allowed me to have a different angle on even the bios. Like we talk about ourselves and we toot our horn and we use words to describe ourselves when really what we should be doing is closing our eyes and feeling each other in another level completely. But we can't do that. But I understand you've got priestesses here. And in the tarot deck, I find it so interesting that the very first card is the Fool. You jump onto this planet like a nut person, like who even comes here because this place is so crazy. And the first place you land is with the magician, the first card. And he says, let me teach you the elements. We can't go anywhere without you knowing how to take care of magic. And magic is the creation tools of water, air, earth, and fire. And so you got to really deeply study it. But the next stop, card number two, because the Fool card is zero, the magician is one, two is the high priestess. And that's really where the magic begins for me, which is the moon card. It's so interesting. It's not what you would imagine. She's actually consulting the moon, which is your language. So if I had to describe myself without that bio, I would say, like you, at a very young age, and I asked this question to you before the interview and to all of you listening, I'd love to hear the answer. When did you first find yourself attracted to the stars? When did the astrology first call your name? And I can guarantee you it will be when you were a child, that whether it was in high school or it was in elementary school and you couldn't stop looking up your sign and wanting to know more or the tarot cards, that's the indication, shh, that you're a witch. So one word is a witch, one word is high priestess, one word is a wisdom keeper. There's lots of the same words that describe it, but I can guarantee everyone listening right now, you've had a calling. And it's a destiny line. It's very clear in Jamie's chart. All you got to do is look and see when someone has Mercury at 29 degrees, that's the highest mastery of a number. 29 is the very last number of the 30 signs in one degree in a sign. There's only 29 degrees in each sign. So to have anything at that very, from 27 to 29, it's a more sophisticated embodiment and it's in Pisces for you. And that was Einstein, was a Pisces who totally knew how to look at the stars and use meditation as his resource. People don't know that. And that Carl Jung, another late degree, um, was a psychiatrist, the first that was ever created, and he was an astrologer. And no one knows that. The very first psychiatrist was using astrology as the model, and he was quoted to say, psychology, or he said, psychology will be a dinosaur science until it includes astrology. So it's just interesting that all of you that are carrying the interest in this or you're being called, I want you to know it's a destiny line. Even me being here today, like these things are being coordinated by higher sources. And if you're an astrologer and you stop for a minute to think, so the moment that I was born, there was an agreement at a mathematical geometric level where the stars and the planets and the signs took over my personality. Like, excuse me, can someone explain to me exactly how that happened? No, no one can. And so we have to suspend our left brain. And any of you in this room know enough to know the high priestess thinks with her heart and her intuition and the ability to go in. And I wish that this is why I'm here today. I wish that when I was younger, like it's so funny because I don't really feel like I'm almost 70. I feel more like I'm somewhere at my first Saturn return, somewhere between like 28 and 32, like you. Like I'm in that era where I just woke up. This is how could this be? Because it's 100 years later, but I still feel this. Like I'm just waking up to the magic of astrology. I'm completely in love with it. It's never dulled, it's never tarnished, it's never gotten dull. And it's all because the magic is so vital. And if you're willing to keep that innocent interest, and that's how I teach our school, I kind of taught the school for like people that had multi-dimensional thinking, like auditory, visual, hands-on create. Like I made it a mixture of modalities because I learn, because my Mercury's in Taurus, I have to learn through experiential things. I don't learn from listening exclusively. I learned from touching it and doing it. So I made the school experiential. So if any of you are thinking about how do I actually become an astrologer, which I bet there's plenty of people here, or you've been studying for a long, long time, but you can't figure out how to make money at it, like really land the plane and not be just studying it, but actually manifesting. That's what my school is for. My school is for people that would have been me, that are you, that thought, how am I going to make a living at this? And really be supporting if I have children in a family. And so the school is designed to teach you how to literally do a reading. You get a little teeny script of like 5 minutes of the structure. And from that position, every single person in my company we've now got 22 certified astrologers, they all use that little teeny script at the beginning to be able to, we call it landing the plane. Because you know how in astrology you're talking about all kinds, there's, endless, I look at the suns on my head, endless opportunities to fly around when you're talking about the stars. There's no end. There's the stars behind me by a Hubble photograph. You guys would love that.
Oh,
Um, but the real issue is the practicality of astrology, which is my specialty, making it come down to earth so that people's lives change. That's really what my school is about. It's not just studying it, because many of you have the basics. You know what the signs are in the planets and the houses, but do you actually know the psychological application? And that's level one. So if any of you are interested, I would love to see you in our school.
I love this. And I remember when I was in that phase for years of I'm just like living and breathing astrology. I listen to every podcast I can. I love reading books, just tuning in to so much content. But I had this self-limiting belief that I couldn't be an astrologer because I had this idea that oh, it's my own self-limiting beliefs like, oh, I'm not smart enough or intelligent enough to be an astrologer, that I don't know if I can do all the technical analysis that some of the astrologers follow. And it was so on my heart. I so badly wanted, like, I felt like this was my calling. I wanted
Yes.
to support people. They're looking at their soul's blueprint. I was so called to how can I support someone to live their purpose? And it was so in my heart, but I actually I felt embarrassed to tell people that I wanted to be an astrologer because I thought people would um, laugh at me, not because of like astrology, but because I thought they would think that I wasn't like smart enough to be an astrologer. And I remember I was having a reading. It was actually with Adam Summer. I had a
Oh,
reading with him, and he was
he has my birthday. We have the same birthday.
I remember I actually listened to a podcast of you two together, like in my early days of
Uh-huh.
astrology. And I had a reading with him, and he was looking at my North Node in Pisces in the eighth house and gave me like a few examples of what that could be. And one of the first things he said was, like astrologer. And when he said that, it was just that affirmation I needed to be like, wow. I could actually be an astrologer. And it was actually him just reflecting that small thing in my chart was totally life-changing. And that's where it's like, I'm going to commit to becoming an astrologer, like from that moment. So
Yes.
I feel like there might be so many people here who maybe have their own, maybe a different version of that, where it's like on your heart. And there's some reason why it's like, wait, is that me? And
Yes.
I feel like your approach of making it like bringing it down and in and working with it and making it practical and tangible and the way you work with the elements is such an amazing like
Simple.
portal into becoming an astrologer.
Yes. And in our school, we have level one, two, and three, which is learning about yourself. The first one is a self-discovery. Two is the nuts and bolts, which you already know, like the progressions and the sun and the moon, and where is the houses and what is the aspects. And then the third level is you do a reading in front of me, and I give you feedback, which is really potent and kind of scary and exciting. But the fourth level is how do you do a funnel? How do you do a website? What's the ethics of being an astrologer? Because to your point, there in the olden days, it was only men. There's never, ever been women astrologers. And they were in the back chambers of kings and they were dealing with strategies of war. And it was all mathematical. And it was a very high echelon. It's like you had to be super wealthy and super male and super smart to get in there. So now look, there's all women in your circle. And in my school, it's only women. My company's only women. So the pendulum went whoop to the other side. So, and there was initiations that occurred in those lifetimes, primal, when we were living in groups living on the ground. And we would say to you, you would have been born with a fascination with stars, and we would have called Jamie the one who loves stars. And that would have been your name, and you would have been endorsed by the community. And of course, you would have been the astrologer because that's what have been. So it's unfortunate that in this modern day, there's people in this room watching this going, could I be? And what's the criteria? And what's the credential? And how do I make a living? And I am here to tell you that, I mean, it's embarrassing to say, but I never had a teacher. So I learned only from the memory. One was from my memory of the sun is just following me around because I'm an astrologer. Here, I'm gonna go. It's so funny. And
I love
astrology all
it.
over my house. You'll see astrology everywhere you look. Yeah. I am such an astrologer. It's so funny. Um, Point being that you have now a modern day access through the internet and and I hope you guys know that I am a resource. I want to support women to learn how to financially, because, the women that have been certified in my company get paid $225 an hour, and I refer clients to them. So they come ask, I don't do readings anymore. They come asking me for readings, and I just keep distributing them amongst all these students that I've had. So just to say, if there's any ambivalence or you're suffering from what Jamie just said, am I smart enough? Am I good enough? Could I actually make a living at this? Absolutely, you can. If the calling is in your heart and you're obsessed, like we know Jamie is, and the other priestesses that are in this team, then you've got the bug because of destiny. She gave you that bug. So do not challenge or question the instinct that your heart's screaming and wonder if the male side of you, the patriarch's going, what's your credential? Are you smart? Like, shut up. I have this deep calling. I'm obsessed. Now, don't ask questions. Let me get at it.
Oh my gosh, I love this. And this is just so aligned with kind of our like vision and purpose with the Astro priestesses is this honoring the feminine in astrology, bringing back the intuition, that inner knowing. Like actually, when I first pull up a chart, and this is kind of what you spoke to at the beginning, I just like pull up someone's natal chart and I close my eyes and I like feel into it before looking at all the details.
Mercury in Pisces at 29 degrees in the eighth house. I think so. It
Totally.
all screams water. And what does water do but close their eyes and feel, not think? And that's the feminine principle, and that's the high priestess.
Yeah. Oh, I love this, Deborah. And I believe that you have there's a free immersion for people to kind of learn more about the school. We'll have
When does this air? Yes, on this
yeah,
Monday.
on the 29th.
Okay, well, the free immersion starts on Monday, which
On
is
Monday. Oh, well, I'll send it out to our everyone who's signed up right now ahead of time. So we'll
that's perfect. So there's a free immersion where every day for an hour and a half, we use the stars as our guide and start the session to see where are the planets that day. And then we interview interesting people like the man who did Next Level podcast, Next Level Soul. His name is Alex Ferrari. Every day there's an interesting character who's going to come on board and I will do their chart will show up. I will assess their chart. We'll do a meditation and a prayer. And it's kind of like boot camp, like a spiritual boot camp where you go in and by the end of it, you're like, I feel different because we really deliberately invoke and in a collective, there's 20,000 people that have signed up already. You'll be in a room full of lots of people, but there's personal touch because randomly we pick people to come up on the screen. So it's a really magical event. And it's never, ever failed that people don't give what the whole process of, can I give you the shortcut? Is in the 6 days of it, you commit to your soul and you say to your soul, take over my life. Like you make a pact. And we do it in prayer and in meditation and in ceremony. And by the end, you've committed. And when the soul is just waiting for you, every one of you, you would not be in this room if you didn't have a cosmic spiritual access point through your soul that's saying, come with us. We have a job for you, and there's some things you need to share. Now, do you have to heal yourself first? Yes. Do you have to get rid of the gremlins? This is my new book, and I'd love it if you pre-ordered the new book. I don't believe in astrology. The first half of the book is the psychology of astrology, which is and this is in your case, Mercury and Pisces in the eighth house. Where does your Mercury, what is your mental body doing? And of course, yours is being squared by Saturn. But so it influences what's the nature of your Mercury? This is the second class we do in our beginner class. We have to identify how to get the mind to take a seat. Because what the mind does, it's so unfair. He's mean. It's a little gremlin that lives in there and tells you you're not smart enough, Jamie. That's so crazy. But where does that come from but comparisonitis? And what is that but a water symptom? People that are highly water implode and they get drowned by their own negativity if they don't have their observer on. So, as you know, my first book, The Missing Element, was all about turning on the observer, like noticing your elemental distribution without the astrology, just basic personality distinction. And then my second book is really detailed, like, oh, you've got Mercury in Pisces in the eighth house. You're susceptible to negative thoughts that aren't even yours. So we're not listening to you. We're going to really rely on that Jupiter and Taurus and all that Capricorn. It's like you stay true to your practical goals. And when the gremlins come, you say, oh, did you want to have a seat? Because there's no one here that wants to talk to you. You don't act mean to them because they don't go away. When you've got Moon in Scorpio, it's not going away. Sorry.
Oh, so true. And then the Virgo self, that can be that harsh inner critic can
And
be
so there's a
so
reframe
intense.
for all of that. You can't have a better psychological model than Moon and Pluto together in Scorpio. Your charts are all designed to facilitate the individual version of your will. And if you don't have a strong will, like she's got so much fixed energy in her chart, which is such an asset being Leo and having Jupiter and Taurus and Moon and Scorpio. And so all of that gives her the stick it to itness that she wasn't going to get deterred. But some of you are mutable in this room and you get other people giving you influences and you lose your focus, or you've got Libra or Gemini or Cancer and you're scared because you want people to. There's a million psychological gremlins that dress up inside your chart based on your Mercury and your predominant element. So there's that. And I would say to you, if you don't have the interest to take an astrology class, at least come get a reading by one of our certified astrologers because they've been trained to land the plane and answer the question specifically. And you can ask them, how can I become an astrologer? What would it take where's my destiny line? We talk a lot about destiny in my school.
Oh my gosh. I love this, Deborah. And so is this, I'm like hearing the title of your book, like what inspired you that I don't believe in astrology? Because how many times coming from, I used to live in Texas. I was a school psychologist. I worked in like a very conservative school district. And when I started to really get into astrology when I was working in that school district, I was just like, if I could use astrology with all of my students, I would just streamline the therapeutic process so much quicker, but it's like, taboo and that setting. And so I'm just so curious with the title of your book. Is it a book where you can like for people who want to talk to people about astrology who like don't believe in it to get like ways to like bridge the gap?
There's such a first, I just want to back up. So you were working as a psychologist or psychologist with these students, but you couldn't use the chart because you bumped into people saying what? Is that and that
Yeah.
or you didn't even breach the topic because it was you could tell.
Well, not even breaching the topic because I had, I had their birthday and, I'm always like very mindful of like ethics. So I had a sense of like what's their sun sign, but I didn't know anything other than my students' sun signs. That alone actually was very helpful just to have that insight about
Totally.
their sun sign. I so wished I had their Mercury sign to have a little more information about what is the best way that they can learn. And the moon would be amazing to know. I might have sometimes looked up to get a sense. If the moon wasn't moving that day, maybe I had a sense of their moon sign. But oh, I was just so lit. When I'm lit up about something, I want to talk about it to everyone. Like I can't.
Really? Oh, really,
It.
Leo rising? Oh,
Yeah.
really?
So
Oh,
I
so
would like
surprising.
talk to like coworkers, and I would get very like, ooh,
Aries with
because I
Leo
also got
rising.
into like energy work and energy healing, and I actually found when I would work with the students who were in crisis, like they're in the moment in crisis, sometimes, desks over their heads, like they've got like scissors, they're like jabbing. If I could just walk into the room, clear everybody else out, and just like hold that energetic space, like I noticed it would calm them
Of
down. But like
course,
when
of
I would try
course.
to tell people what happened, it freaked them out because my last year, it was these parts were terrible. I love the students. I loved working with them, but I was on the crisis team, so I had to work with students who are very escalated. And there are times where
You're
some
so built for that job.
yeah, where someone's actually very physically getting physically dangerous, where a last case scenario, there's a whole de-escalation thing you do first, but sometimes you have to physically stop them from hurting themselves or others. It's a horrible thing to do. But my very last year, I didn't have to do that one time because when you do that, you have to fill out all this like paperwork around it, and it's like a huge bureaucratic thing because ultimately to protect the students that we don't want people just, physically restraining students when you don't have to. But my last year when I really started doing like energy work, I didn't do one restraint to where my director, special education director, called me and said, "You didn't fill out any of your paperwork on the restraints for the year." And I was like, "I didn't do any." And they're like, "How?" But then like when you start talking about like energy healing and astrology, they're all like, "Ooh," it like freaks them
Well,
out.
that's how we got to this conversation. So yes, I met a lot of resistance. The book came out of a humor system because I am a Gemini,
Yeah.
wanting to tickle people into realizing, hold on a minute, you don't believe in astrology? Well, let me show you. So it's kind of a humorous entrance. So I don't address what to do with those people. I hate to say that, but I don't because I don't care about those people.
Yeah, that's true. I love
But
that.
but what I really value is the conversation at the beginning of the book is that the operating system we have as humans is flawed and it's built to make us insecure, just as you described. Instead of having the natural default where you would feel like, of course, Jamie, you can do whatever you want. Your internal dialogue was not really. So if that what I address and what I name is the human condition is very faulty and it's okay to say it out loud. And I wanted to call the book You're Fucked Up and I still like you but they wouldn't let me name it that. But that's essentially what the meaning of it, the first half of the book is I'm going to describe all the ways that humans are mean and they ghost people and they abandon people and they break our hearts and we blame them when really we are them and all that can, and then I jump into the chart into each of the signs and talk about the reframe. For example, for Virgo, like not every Virgo suffers. I mean, they all suffer from criticism. That's not a debate. But what they can do with that is turn it into a pure intent to realize that this is simply because I really want to do a good job and I always do a good job. And when they start to give themselves affirmations, I always do a good job. I don't have to pressure I always get things done. I'm helping rewrite the narrative of the psychology of old astrology. So Scorpios are not mean and they're not dark and they don't have to deal with moods. They are intense and they're straight and they don't beat around the bush, but that doesn't mean they're mean. So, it's a reframe, a lot of what the book is, and then it goes into deep conversation about Saturn because I have a relationship with Saturn, which I wanted to speak to today. I know we're perfectly on time, but there are these major transits that are going to occur in 2020. Never before in the history of astrology, if you look across all the ephemerises, we've never had all four outer planets switching the same year. That's 2026. So 2026 is when the whole thing, and I'm going to give you the dates. But as you know, in November 19th of 2024, Pluto finally entered Aquarius. And so this is why we're having this conversation. There's priestess on a computer. If this is not Aquarius, we have a bunch of astrologers on a computer talking about woo-woo, and it's normal. Oh, and by the way, it's free. I mean, it's very Aquarian. It's like that's my immersion. Like, let's share information about the new age with a really concrete system with cyberspace where we all hold hands without ever touching.
Oh my gosh, Deborah, I just, when you talk, and especially when you're sharing about your book, you are like an ocean of love that's like flowing through you. And especially it feels like that, like when I was tuning in, because, it's like I'm like so immersed in my own astrology chart, but then we still, I still have my own little like self-limiting things and hangups that come up. And when you were talking, I was like, it feels like receiving. I'm like it feels like I'm like bathing in the ocean of
Yes.
love. Like,
That's so beautiful. That is so
yeah,
my dream. I have Cancer on the midheaven
I
and
love
Mars in Cancer. And so my job this life is to be the mom, an astrology mom that says, if you're scaring yourself, if you don't think you're capable of just beginning to learn the astrology to get the system that you've already passed, because everybody in this room studied somewhat of astrology, then the next step is level two is now, how do I actually nuts and bolts get this thing into a system? Because the problem is, you probably remember this when you first start, is you just fly around. You start talking to people about their charts. You don't know where you're going. You're just following the wind. And then when it comes time till it's over, you're like, did I give them the right points? And that's what I provide is the system to say, this is what you want to focus on. Just follow the structure. You need to talk to them about their Saturn, their life lessons. You got to talk about the missing element. You got to talk about what they're here this moment, what the transits are, the progressed moon. And once you get those few things in the reading, it's like, that was the best reading I ever had. That's my favorite thing. And we get so much of that from our school. People say because they've had so many readings, but where are we landing the plane? Like it's okay to fly around.
Oh my gosh, I love that. My earth element is like so
Yes.
just yes, because I have like my Venus and Gemini that can be like do do do, but my earth element is like yes. And you really got me, Leek. You really piqued my interest, Lee. And this is one of the biggest things about astrology is these outer planets shifting signs from like water and earth going into air and fire. And I know that
All of them.
yeah,
Okay, so
your
you guys,
inspiration
so
was
so
pain.
grab your pens. We're going to do a little bit of astrology that I want you to remember. There's some things that would be really worthy for you to remember. And I'll start with the general conversation about how these planets move. So you all know Saturn return is at 28 years old. So at every 28 years, it comes back to where it belongs, where it started in your chart. It takes 2.5 years for Saturn to go around the sky, 2.5 years to go through one sign, and therefore 24 times 2.5 is 28 to 30 years to go through the all signs. So we know that Saturn is changing. It enters, let's see, on May 25th this year, 2025, till August 31st. So you can mark that down. That's the window when Saturn's going to be in Aries. And it's only going to be 0 to 1 degree. So it's just we're getting teased right now. We're being reminded, wow, there's a change happening. So that's the first one. Then you all know that in 2024, Pluto changed, and Pluto takes 240 years. They say 250 years, but it's a long time in one sign. It can be all the way up to 30 years in one sign. Where Saturn only stays in one sign for 2.5 years, Pluto, the opposite, the longest, furthest planet out, stays in one sign for up to 30 years. So it's a very long movie. And when it changes, as it did in November, it's like a adjustment. Like here comes AI and this wonderful chat, and we have this astrology. This, listen to you guys. Like this whole room is a fixation of Pluto and Aquarius. You're obsessed. I mean, I can see that Jamie's obsessed. I'm obsessed too, so don't feel bad. But that's Pluto and Aquarius. Now astrology comes into the mainstream. And so while Pluto was in Capricorn those last was almost 20 years, 2008 to 2024, more than 20 years. Less than 20 years, yes. Pluto was in Capricorn. That was the destruction of government. And look what's happened to the American, whether whoever you voted for, we have to admit that democracy's out. We are going to go through and that was the very end. Notice how long it took for Pluto to have its turn. Well, Pluto just entered Aquarius. So we've got another 20 years. By the time this Pluto transit passes and you'll be in your 50s, you'll be able to say, I remember when Pluto first entered Aquarius, and now I have this robot in my house. And now I have the speed. Now I found out telepathy is real, and they've given me this technology. And now I know that these phones, that these crazy phones they used, now it's just these buttons when you speak it out loud. Like there's so much we can't even predict. The only thing I predict that I pretend is true. You know, when someone's telling you a story like you just did about when you before we started about being a kid in 15 years, you're in high school and you're getting captured by astronomy, and then you go outside and you have this event where you're all outside and you can't get back on the bus because all you want to do is just be. When you told me that story, if we were in the future, I would come with you and we would be able to see the visuals of what happened. And I'd see little Jamie and I'd be standing there as her angel. And you'll tell stories, we'll be telling stories, but we'll have access to the memories. That's what I imagine. I know it's true because I get glimpses. I have a very strong Uranus in my
I'm
chart.
getting big chills as you're
So
sharing.
that will give us the gift of time travel, but inside of the matrix, because we can't leave. If you've noticed, I hope you all noticed, we live in a very small ability for the mind. It's pretty much your lungs, your kidneys, your bladder, your everybody in your body is all devoted and committed to staying the course. You could call it at the lowest level a slave to this existence, at the highest level a gifted giver. And these parts of our temple here is the body, which is very gifted and very blessed, works on an automatic nervous system. So do you. So until you wake up inside the dream, which is what astrology does, takes you off the planet, takes you up and out. Now you're looking back at the people and going, let me give you some feedback. This is the observer posture. That observer posture is put in place by astrology. But the truth about the human condition is we have a very limited stratosphere. We live in a very small system. And astrology is one of the only tools that I know of that gives us permission to step out and go, yeah, I was saying this today to one of my employees, like you're in Aries and you're impulsive. I want to suggest to you to take a breath. No judgment. Just let's name these things. Let's turn on the observer. Let's learn from the automatic nervous system and get a vote and say, you know what? Just give me a minute. I want to take a breath. I know I'm in Aries and I feel really impulsive. My moon's in Scorpio. I want to get pissed off, but I know that part of myself. Give me a minute. And yes, I do need to say this loud and hard. And you make the decision, and it doesn't come out of impulse and it comes out of wisdom, or I'm going to hold energy and I'm going to use my energy magic and I'll move the energy through my hands rather than bluntly saying something. So these are the magical tools that Pluto and Aquarius is going to bring us. So that one's in place. The one in 2025, when Saturn enters Aries, I'm going to suggest that's when civil war or the argument about our government and the conflict that's going to occur with this new administration is going to really create polarization. It's creating more divisiveness, and that's Saturn and Aries. We have to learn how to argue in a kind way. Will we do it? Good question. We have 2.5 years. It's going to start, and then it finishes in August 31st. And then I hope you all know this Saturn enters Aries on February 15th, 2026 for the next 2.5 years. So you want to mark that down, the beginning of 2026 for all of you Aries out there. And then what's really interesting is Neptune enters Aries at the same degree, January 27th, 2026. And so there again, there is a reintroduction to our male energy. It's everything that the priestesses talk about. And I'd love to do a prayer before we finish this because it is so important to anchor this conversation past the mind into the heart. I think the really important piece, I'm just going to take a moment with Neptune and Saturn conjunct. It was a time in the past where war could end. So think about that. Saturn snuggles up to Neptune. Neptune's the dreamer. Neptune says, I have a dream. We don't have to be mean to each other. We can be straight and direct and use our male assertiveness and create healing and change the climate and do all these very proactive things we have to do. But with Neptune softening, there's a chance that this is really my prayer, my hope, is that your generation sees the imprint of those ones like you. You don't even know who, it's so cute. You don't know who you are, but you're clearly a priestess. You know it, but you don't know it. I'm here as the elder to say to you, yes, Jamie, and the other three women on your circle, you are priestesses and you put yourself out in the public for the first time. It's safe. and you can be celebrated and you can accrue an audience through your mailing list that also feels supported by you guys. And this is what creates Neptune conjunct Saturn and Aries. It's a new form of mail. It's a new form of assertiveness. It's doing it in community. Neptune and Aries. The dream is that my dream for Neptune and Aries is the creative urge of Neptune is cloaked by a wise male side, an Aries, a male side, who says, I've noticed that war thing didn't work ever, not once. It always hurts. Why don't we use our male energy to reassert a new value system, said Neptune. So that's a really good introduction for this next era that I'm going to bank on and hope all of you do. Then I think you all know this. On April 27th, here we go in 2026 again. Uranus enters Gemini and stays there. And Uranus stays in one sign for 7 years. I don't know if you knew that. And Neptune is 14 years. So Neptune's going to be in Aries for 14 years. Saturn will be 2.5 years of that. And that's going to change our definition of the male. It's already happening. But the exciting one, Uranus enters Gemini, and we begin this conversation about telepathy, about new ways of communicating, about being able to accept male, female genders, don't have to be the old rules. We can change because it's an androgynous sign, Gemini. And Uranus is the introduction of brand new. So there's a revolution in the name of war in the male side. There goes Saturn and Neptune. Uranus enters Gemini and says, can we have a new way of communicating? Like, why don't we change our language structure so that we listen to the other parties that are opposite? This is going, because if the Civil War, it's going to first be awful. Let's just speak to that. As we enter 2025, you already saw this with the fires, with the hurricanes, I mean, it's unbelievable. I saw this funny note. It said, this is so funny. It was a meme that made me laugh so hard, and it's going to make you laugh as soon as I pull this up. Here, it said, Hi, I'd like to cancel my subscription to 2025. I experienced the first 3 week free trial, and I'm definitely not interested. 2025 came in with a wild energy, and it's introducing us to that Aries and to the fire. So while I'm speaking to the dream of the Neptune and Saturn and Aries changing the narrative, and while we're hoping Pluto and Aquarius brings us the future, there is a requirement for all of us to find our activism. And that's what the next 2 years are going to call forward. As soon as Saturn enters Aries, and then we've got to stand up and say, I can't tolerate this. I'm not doing this, and start speaking. Because the witches, the priestesses, have all been scared to talk anyway. Well, that all changed. Here we are in a summit. Here we are in my organization where there's 20,000 people, 30,000 people going to be sitting in a room with me on Monday talking about prayer. It's changing in every one of our worlds. What's most important is the ones that aren't changing, that we have compassion for them. And that's not easy. I really want to encourage all of you to be gentle enough and kind enough to imagine that you were young again as a soul and you didn't know that magic was real and you bought the lie and you drank the Kool-Aid and you really believed what your parents told you that you had to be normal, which is a setting on a dryer. It has nothing to do with this reality. There is no normal, said the astrologer. So be kind to those people that don't match your philosophy, that, be curious. They may not want to listen to you, but you can practice listening. We're going to have to change with Uranus and Gemini the nature of our conversations, how we talk to each other. You're so good at this. You're such a deep listener. But because that's Pluto conjunct the moon in Scorpio, you in Jupiter opposite. You're like, I am committed to going deep and feeling the vibration. I've really had to change my attitude about the political people that are in my opposite camp that don't agree with me because it does push my buttons, and I have moon in Aries. And then I saw, oh, this is what Saturn and Neptune are going to ask of me. How do I rearrange my internal response pattern? That's Aries. How do I not be impulsive and reactive? And I'm not saying I can do it. If you push my buttons and we're in a car and I give you the finger, I don't do that anymore. No, I don't. Now what I do is I smile and go, I guess we just bumped. The biggest single thing I want to give to your audience today in the name of Saturn and Neptune coming together in Aries and the entrance of Saturn is take a breath. Yeah, the embodied breath as we're doing right now in this moment. The permission to slow it down and say to myself, like, could I have done that different? Do I need to say I'm sorry? How can I make myself kinder? This is my mantra. What can I do? Because I have a little bitch. I don't know about you guys, but I have a grand trine in fire and I'm older. And the older you get, the less patience. It's a funny, peculiar thing. On the one hand, you couldn't give a shit what people think anymore. That's the fun part. It's really cool, just letting you know. Boy, is that a difference. That would really help all you Libras and Cancers and Pisces and all you little pleasers and the Taurus and you stop caring. But what does happen is there's an impatience that comes. And I've really had to work with myself, and I'm going to invite all of you to pretend this is what I did when I was about 35. I had my first child, and I realized that I wasn't knowing how to receive help. Like I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to get help. I'm going to turn this way now because the sun is finally giving me a break. It's okay. He's my boss. Is that a beautiful photo? It's a piece of art behind me of a woman watching the world over here. Right? Wait, where is it? The red part right there is a fire. The whole city's on fire. This picture behind is an astrology chart of old ancient rock, so you can see how long it's lasted. And the world is cracking. But she's holding her heart because she knows how to love even in the name of fear.
Oh,
Because if
gorgeous.
you know astrology, you guys, you know you can trust. They're completely reliable. They're 100% constant. There's nothing that's absolutely more dependable. Even when Mercury goes retrograde, to your point, that is simply a request to slow it down, said the Gemini Aries to the Aries Leo. So it's not our best trait. Can you
Um,
slow down with your Jupiter and Taurus? Do you give yourself permission to slow down?
I do. I have to create intention around it, but it's for me, it's going out in nature, getting my feet on the earth, resting my back against a tree. It's literally just going out and grounding is so.
And can you all promise to do that when you watch this, that after you watch Debra Silverman's keynote address, she reminded you of the value not just of the stars, but of the embodiment of the human condition by being compassionate and slowing it down? This is how you'll be the bridge. This is how you're going to marry the two worlds, because that's everybody in this room. I love when you said that. I want to bring the stars down to earth. That's what the four of you came together as a group. Well, how do you do that? You bring it through your feet, through your souls. The bottom of your feet is called the soul.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I'm just curious for, for each of the four elements, many of us were like, for me, I have of course, I'm strong earth, fire, and water, but I have such a strong earth signature. Could for each of the four elements, is there like maybe like an intuitive like guidance you have for navigating the year ahead?
I love that so much. Okay, so let's start with water. Obviously, Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio could be your rising sign. Could just be a predominant five planets in the eighth house. I don't even care if there's water. If you've got a big stellium, during 2025, you're going to be emotionally disrupted. It already started. And if you have the ability to let your emotional body be free, it's okay to cry. During those fires, I, went to school, graduate school in Los Angeles, so I have a lot of connections there. I let myself cry. The thought of the animals, that's all it takes for a water. So permission to cry, people say carve out time. I love this wisdom. Like I'm going to spend the next hour letting myself wounded, pull off the Band-Aid, and then I'm going to put the Band-Aid back on in the next 23 hours. It's enough of that. So the moodiness is released and detoxed so that it doesn't go low grade all day. For any of you that suffer from depression, you can say you need to complain, but it has to be within a window of time with your therapist, with the dog, with your best friend, and you get to say, I'm going to complain. Please don't stop me. Don't tell me it's okay. I'm going to tell you I'm fucked up. And my best friend, I'm fucked up. Instead of her saying, no, you're not, Deborah, she goes, yeah, you are. I go, thank you. Then it goes away. But if you tell me, no, you're not, no, you're not, and then I go, no, I'm not, no, I'm not, but I am. That confusion, that Pisces confusion, that Cancer implosion, the Scorpio self-destruction, that's a symptom of not being willing to feel the feelings. So please give yourself permission. It's okay. It's okay to say, I'm a wreck. I mean, it would not be dishonest. It will just be uncomfortable. And if you have a best friend or you've got a dog, they'll let you say that. Okay, air. You guys need to do the research. You have to keep your mind on the podcast, inside the research, reading the materials. It's okay to let yourself get. However, you must learn meditation. I know the water people, that would be medicine for you too, to keep the depression at distance. But the air people, and meditation for an air person is not sitting still. This is a misnomer. You can't tell a Gemini to meditate like this. They're like, are we done yet? You have to move, you have to wiggle, you have to go do yoga and then do shavasana. You have to go for a hike and then sit down under the tree. You have to first spend the energy, air people. That will give you the gift of being able to get quiet. But if you don't, you'll think you're a bad meditator and you don't know how to turn your mind off and you're indecisive, and all that's true. But it's medicinalized by you being able to, first of all, spend the time writing, reading, making notes, doing your journal. Give yourself permission. You're a talker. And then find the quiet. Because if the air person doesn't know, I have tattooed on my arm the words silent and listen have the same letters. In order to really listen, you have to be silent. If your mind is going at the speed of light with so much information all the time, because I can't tell you to stop, you can't listen. And what is the high priestess if not the one who knows how to sit in the temple with no one in the room listening? So air people, yes, read, write, take you of all signs, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, go take the astrology class. Come on. What are you waiting for? You have to feed your mind. I don't care if you already know it. You're going to go learn about it again. That's what air people do. And they forget where their notebook is and they don't even know if they took enough notes and they don't even know where they put the notebook. You need to take the class. Our class is very succinct. It's taught to an air sign person. But in any case, you can go study anything. I don't care. Go study Ayurveda, go study medicine, go study astrology. Air people must entertain their mind, and it can sacrifice your thoroughness. That's why you got to stop from time to time, take a breath, and listen to the high priestess to tell you, do I really need another class or should I just go back and review the other one? Good question. Earth people in 2025, I would say your biggest challenge is going to be feeling safe. And you're probably going to feel a little preoccupied with going to Costco and cleaning things up and organizing because it's making you a little nervous. And so you should be nervous. Be careful with the coffee. You earth people tend to want to get high strung, but it rattles your nervous system. And you are the earth people who are so under pressure. You're always supposed to be doing more to you, and you're never doing enough, and you feel inadequate, and you have comparisonitis. So the medicine for the earth people in 2025, especially because Jupiter is going to be in Cancer the second half of the year, from June till the new year, it's so wonderful for the earth people. There's going to be a feeling of, if you can choose to do this with the North Node going into Pisces and Virgo, you can make this year, all the earth people, you can make this year your most calm yet. Not less productive, but calmer. And that means that you don't have to feel the pressure. And you can repeat over and over again, I always get things done. This is your mantra. I always get things done. And they're done really well because your internal dialogue is saying, hurry, hurry, hurry. Like, no, no, no. I always get things done and I do them really well. Calm down. You have to talk yourself through this because this is a year for you. They're having a really good year, Tauruses. I mean, Jupiter gave you 2023, but you had Jupiter return. Is that when this thing started?
Gosh, our initial kind of Astro Priestess collaboration, I feel like it kind of took off to a new level with just the reach we were having with it.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
That's, just so you know, you're born under a lucky star. That's Jupiter on the midheaven. If you're born with Jupiter on the top of your head, lucky you. And for the fire people, it's especially for early degree Aries, those people who have 1, 2, 3 degrees of Aries, when Saturn and Neptune come to visit, and they will, you're going to have an activation portal that is going to ask you to start reevaluating what you want to do and giving you the discipline. And then all 2026, you're on a roll, fire people. And that's true for Leo's early degrees. That would certainly be true. Also, I would say that while Jupiter's in Gemini, the first 6 months for the fire people, you are being given a lot of chi. So it's permission to use the chi, like you're going to have more energy than you're used to. That's what I want to say.
Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. I love that. I feel like there's such medicine for each of us, and we can probably take some medicine from each of those elements that you were just sharing. I was taking medicine on all those the wisdom you brought through. And I was actually laughing because, I have such a strong earth signature, and I am that person like I love the like on top of the world productive energy that like coffee hits me. And then I'm like, my nervous system is like, like, why did I do that? I was just laughing. So I'm like, I've never made that connection like with my elements in my chart and with the
It's, you know what
coffee.
the issue is? And then I have to go here in a few minutes. I
Yeah.
usually only do 45 minutes. The big issue is just what I just said right now, pacing. Like I don't go past the discomfort in my body. If I'm talking, I can do 45 minutes full on. But if people expect me to do an hour. And it's been up to me as the elder to say, and like, I don't know if you ever saw the podcast with Blue of Earth. Do you know who she is? Wonderful influencer. I was on her podcast twice, and then she just made fun of me after and said, when Deborah's done, she just stands up and leaves. I mean, I just dropped the mic, like, oh well. And that's been a signature of mine as a Gemini Aries, knowing my style. And you guys are allowed to do the same. Some people need to stay longer. If they're Taurus or Cancer or Capricorn, they want to finish the whole thing, be really thorough, and that makes their nervous system feel better. So you have to pay attention to your nervous system. If there's one piece of advice that I want to really give you guys before we do this prayer is your nervous system is described by your capacity to consciously breathe. So start there. If you can consciously breathe during the day, and it's as simple as this, let's just do it all together. Take a deep breath and hold it at the top. And now slowly breathe out calm and let your nervous system calm. Now that's so simple. And you can do it with your eyes opened or closed anytime during the day. If you knew how many times during the day I stop, and no one needs to know. That's called self-regulation, especially when things are getting upset, especially when you're about to cry. You just take a deep breath and you will be amazed that the tears don't have to fall if you just honor, whoa, I just need a minute. I need a second. So let's enter into the prayer time. So we're in temple, we're in a ceremony, we're in the quiet of the priestess's room. We close our eyes, I bow my head, I put my hands on my heart, and I acknowledge those I cannot see. And I pray to the powers that live beyond my mind and beyond this world. And I ask for guidance. I ask for protection. And most of all, I ask for wisdom to find its way to me. I am available. So just let that echo in your heart. I'm available. As these times in the world become more and more intense, let me be the midwife. Give me the gift of patience, of trust, of calm, that I can default to the place where I can stop time and be the one in the room that has faith. May every one of you remember the part of you that signed up to be here. You volunteered for this, and return to your enthusiasm starting now. I'm so excited. This is the times that we were born for. I'm so excited to wake up inside the dream. I want nothing more than to play my role. And I bow to my soul, to my higher self, and I say, use me. Let me be of value. Let this life be of meaning because I am in service to those that created me. And by doing so, my heart softens, my breath deepens, time slows down, my body heals, and I remember I'm the one that has the gift to heal the other because I've given myself back to trust, faith, compassion. The whole planet is waiting for you. You're the ones we've been waiting for. I am the one I've been waiting for. I found out, each of you can say this, that my love for myself, my compassion and my kindness will determine everything. And so for that reason, I practice this very practice, taking deep breaths. Let's do another one. Hold it at the top. Breathe out kindness to self. You're going to pour kindness all over your body. It's just forgiving you for any judgments or any hardship or any pain. I'm just being kind to me right now. And in the wake of this kindness, as we enter into 2025's full birthing, there'll be some of us who know how to stop time, come back home, come back to the compassion, let the tears fall, and know without a doubt that all of this has been written in the stars. We are being watched, we're being protected, and each of you are finding your destiny calling your name. Stop and listen. And so it is. Aho.
Well, thank you, Deborah. Thank you for the gift of being here, for sharing your magic, your wisdom, your presence. Everyone who's here, go out and pre-order Deborah's book, sign up for her astrology school. We'll have some links here below that you can click on. And thank you
And
so
then tell us you were from, Jamie, that you were from the priestesses. I would love to know when I go and look and see who you are. That would make me so happy.
Aw, well, thank you, Deborah, and everyone who's here. We have 5 days of inspiring interviews to guide you and ground you in the energy of 2025 and beyond. So I look forward to connecting with you, with myself, and the other Astro Priestesses in all the interviews. And we'll see you in the videos. And if you're here, please write in the comments, share your experience, share your elemental disposition. We'd love to hear. All right, bye for now, everyone.
Aloha.